about this pendulum?
So the idea is that your brain is constantly swinging between these two states, survival and creativity, and they can't really coexist. When you're focused on one, the other one fades into the background,
So when we're in survival mode, our creative side goes dormant.
basically. And the article describes the survival state as reactive. You're driven by stress, you're focused on what you lack, you feel scarce. The amygdala, the fear center of your brain, is in charge here. So you're hypervigilant, looking for threats, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, and your thoughts are all about fear and lack.
And on the other side of the pendulum, we have the creative state.
Yes. And this state is all about being proactive, peaceful, and abundant. You're not reacting to fear, you're creating from a place of calm and possibility. In this state, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, problem-solving, and creativity, it takes the lead. You're clear-headed, you can imagine new possibilities, inspiration flows easily.
So it's like two totally different ways of being in the world.
Exactly. And the key takeaway here is that your brain goes where your attention goes. So if you're constantly focused on stress and survival, that's where your brain stays. But if you can shift your attention to peace and possibility, your brain will follow.
And then you can tap back into that creative flow.
Exactly. Now, the article illustrates this with a really great analogy involving a gazelle and a lion. Imagine a gazelle peacefully grazing in a field. Suddenly, a lion appears. The gazelle instantly shifts into survival mode, all its energy focused on escaping that danger. But once the threat is gone, the gazelle goes right back to grazing. It doesn't dwell on the scary encounter, it just lets it go.
That's a pretty healthy way to deal with stress.
Right. Now, compare that to how we humans tend to react to stress. We often hold on to those stressful thoughts and feelings long after the actual event has passed. The article uses the example of a difficult coworker. It's like that person is a constant lion in your life, keeping you in that survival state and preventing you from relaxing and getting creative.
It's like our minds keep the threat alive, even when it's not really there anymore.
Exactly. And our brains aren't always great at distinguishing between a real immediate threat and a perceived threat, like a deadline or a financial worry. So we end up chronically stressed, which, as we've discussed, really shuts down our creativity.
So it's all about recognizing those thought patterns and learning to shift our focus. Now, the article has this really helpful comparison table that summarizes all these key points. Maybe we can touch on some of the highlights for everyone listening.
Absolutely. So the table really contrasts the difference between how our bodies react to a true, immediate danger versus the kind of everyday stress we often experience in modern life. You know, the things that maybe aren't life or death situations, but our brains perceive them as threats anyway.
Right, like that email from your boss that sends your heart rate through the roof.
Exactly. So one key difference is what happens with those stress hormones. In a real emergency, they surge to help you deal with the immediate situation, and then they quickly go back down to normal levels. But with chronic stress, those hormones can stay elevated for long periods.
Which is not good for creativity, or for anything, really.
Right. And then there's your heart rate and breathing. They speed up in a dangerous situation, that's normal. But then they should slow back down once the danger is passed. With chronic stress, your heart rate can stay elevated and your breathing can be shallow and irregular for extended periods.
It's like you're constantly revved up, even when you don't need to be.
Exactly. And that makes it hard to relax and get into that creative flow state. And then there's your focus. In a dangerous situation, your focus narrows to deal with that immediate threat. But with chronic stress, your focus can stay locked on those stressors, even when you're not in immediate danger.
So you're missing out on everything else that's happening around you.
Right, you're missing out on those opportunities and possibilities that might be right in front of you. And then there's muscle tension. It's normal to tense up in response to danger. But with chronic stress, that tension can become chronic too. It's like your body is always braced for something bad to happen.
So we literally hold that stress in our bodies.
Exactly. And even blood flow is affected. In a survival situation, blood gets diverted to your muscles so you can fight or flee. But with chronic stress, that blood flow can stay prioritized for that stress response, instead of being used for things like digestion, healing, and creative thinking.
Wow, so it's a whole body system-wide impact?
It really is. But the good news is, the article ends on a really positive note. It talks about how we can recondition ourselves for abundance.
So there's hope for us chronic stressors. What are some of the key takeaways there? How do we actually start to shift out of that stress cycle and get back to our creative selves?
Well, the article emphasizes that one of the biggest things you can do is to shift your perspective on challenges. Instead of seeing them as threats, try to see them as opportunities for growth.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Definitely. It takes practice. But when you can approach challenges with that growth mindset, it opens up your creativity and helps you find new solutions.
And it probably feels less stressful, too.
Absolutely. And another key point is to focus on cultivating those positive emotions like joy, gratitude, love, and excitement. Those emotions create a high vibration, energetic state, and that naturally attracts more positive experiences into your life.
So it's about actively focusing on the good stuff.
Right. It's about training your brain to look for those positive things, those moments of joy and inspiration. And as you do that, you start to create a more abundant and fulfilling life.
I love that. So it's about recognizing how powerful our thoughts and our focus are.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that core message that we started with. Your natural state is one of creativity, peace, and infinite possibility.
It's about remembering that we have that power within us.
Precisely. And when we become aware how stress affects us, we can start to make conscious choices to shift our focus and tap back into that power.
So as we wrap up here, maybe a good question for everyone listening is, how do you personally notice stress showing up in your life? And what are some small things you can do to start shifting your focus towards peace and creativity?
That's a great question. And if you want to dive even deeper into all of this, I highly recommend checking out the full article, Manifesting Abundance, The Pendulum of Stress to Creative Flow, over at mysticalabundance.blogspot.com.
Yes, definitely check it out. And you can also connect with them on social media at mysticalabundance1111.
Absolutely.
And as always, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might find it helpful.
We love hearing from you.
And here's a final thought to ponder as you go about your day. What's one tiny, almost insignificant step you can take today to move away from stress and towards a state of greater peace? Even just for a moment. It could be a deep breath, a few minutes of meditation, a walk in nature, whatever works for you. And as you do that, notice how you feel. Notice how your energy shifts. You might be surprised at how even those small changes can start to open up new possibilities in your life.
Absolutely. Small steps lead to big shifts.
That's right. Until next time, be well and stay curious.
And remember, your natural state is abundance.
We'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.